station there as well.
Yeah, my aunt used to live really close to there.
It's a cute area. And there's like an old-timey bar there where old men get together and talk, and there's a barber shop and everything. It's cute.
There's quite a few of those. Most of my friends have worked at least one of those.
This house is only a couple blocks away from where the festival happens. It's very close. Mm-hmm. And one day during the Frankfort Fall Fest of 2005, Kevin came upon an elderly man in a 3-piece suit and a fedora standing in his front yard, just staring up at the 3rd floor window of his house.
Okay.
It's suburbia to the max.
Yeah. Totally.
And Frankfort Fall Fest, they attract over 250,000 people every year.
Which surprises me because I don't think it's ever been that crowded when I was going there. But I went there when I was little.
It's apparently a really big deal. People travel from outside of Frankfurt to come to it, which I think is nifty.
And they have a blues fest, by the way. If you guys ever feel really jazzy, you'll probably see us there because I love blues.
There's lots of bands and musicians. It's really cool. But when he came across the man in his front yard, which I think is kind of weird anyway, he was cordial and he said hello, and the man introduced himself as Sam. The two of them began chatting, and Sam told Kevin that his wife had grown up in that house, and he knew that it was inhabited by 2 ghosts.
Okay.
The first spirit that Sam told Kevin about was an English immigrant named Sarah, who had contracted an illness while crossing the Atlantic. Her fever continued to worsen, and sadly, Sarah died in the house in 1909 at the age of 10 years old.
Oh, that sucks.
It's very sad. The second spirit that Sam told Kevin about is named Sadie, and her story is immensely more tragic than Sarah's. I get very upset when I think about it, but we're going to have to talk about it because it's part of the story.
Well, you just listened to my pork sandwich story, so...
It's not as bad as that, so... So there's always that. In 1901, 12-year-old Sadie boarded a train in Boston, Massachusetts to escape her abusive parents. She eventually made her way to Illinois, getting off of the train in Frankfort. Having nowhere to go, what?
In 1901?
Mm-hmm.
To the farmland?
Yeah.
I get it.
No, the whole area over there was being populated by then. Even Mokina's really old.
I know. It's still farm.
It was farm, but also, too, there were tiny little collective groups of people settling all over those areas.
No, I get it. My brain says immediately I would have probably gone to a denser populace.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, she's also 12 and trying to get away.
Yeah. I'm not mad at her getting away.
Yeah.
I was just...
Compass, take me anyway. Having nowhere to go and virtually no money after getting off the train in Frankfurt.
Because she's 12.
Sadie began working as a maid in the local Frankfurt brothel, which used to be Kevin's house.
Okay.
Right?
I was aware that there was a brothel at one point in time, but I was not aware it was that house.
There's also a brothel on Front Street in Mokina. It's where A's Pizza used to be. One evening, a man named Will mistook Sadie for a sex worker, and Sadie was raped, beaten, and her throat was cut by Will.
So, I mean, because I mistake people as sex workers constantly.
Especially when they're 12.
Yeah, and the first thing I think is cut their throats.
Mm-hmm. She fought back really hard, and she apparently had been screaming very loudly, and he got very angry at her.
That's justification enough.
Right?
That puts him right in the clear.
That's what we do, right?
Why wouldn't you throw someone who's screaming?
Makes me angry. So workers at the brothel had wrapped Sadie's body in a sheet and carried her down a ways to the train tracks at the end of their street, and they buried her body in a shallow grave near the train tracks.
Which, as we know, is not the best place to place bodies.
Correct. So, as it turns out, Sarah and Sadie both died in the same 3rd floor bedroom, years apart.
Oh, okay. So, okay. And then they took her body from there to tracks.
Yeah, that's just where she was killed.
Okay.
Kevin listened to the old man's story, but he remained skeptical. And rightly so, because how often do you and I talk about how you need to come from a place of skepticism if you want real answers and validation?
Right. Like we talked about before, you can decide that things are true when they mean things. That's why horoscopes work for a lot of people, because they will believe it because they need it to be true when they read the horoscope that they read. It works with your psychology to believe the things that you believe when you believe them because of the manner of which you are.
Well,
does that make any sense?
And also, it's better to try to find explanations for things instead of wanting something to be real so badly that you ignore potential causes.
Right, and logic.
And logic. That's a big one. However, in the years following their encounter, the spirits in the home would start to become more active, and they eventually made a believer out of Kevin. Kevin began speaking to several of the home's previous tenants who all confirmed Sarah's story and had said that they had come in contact with her, and they believed that she was there. These are both two young girls, so I could see where you could kind of blend them into one if you didn't realize that two deaths had occurred in the house.
Were these people aware, do you know, perchance, if they were aware because they had heard the story prior to being there or when they were already there?
They did know the story about Sarah.
Okay. I feel like that also tends to help when you want to believe that there's a cause for something.
Here's the really interesting part. So Kevin went and sought out a medium who he did not tell anything about the home at all. And he brought the medium there. As soon as she walked in the door, she picked up on Sadie's energy and recounted her tale.
Okay.
The other thing that the medium did when she got into the house and she did the walkthrough, and she did pick up on Sarah too, but she told Kevin that she felt like the energies in the house were connected to his neighbor's house as well.
Okay.
The medium and Kevin went next door to the neighbor's house, and they talked to them and invited them to come back into the house and do a walkthrough. So they invited the neighbors to come back and do a walkthrough of the house, and after that, the neighbors started actually experiencing things in their home as well. The neighbor's name was Suzanne, and she said that she would start to have lights come off and on in the house, and there was one morning that she woke up, and every piece of makeup that she had on her vanity was placed on a chair and flipped upside down. And they had never had issues like that until they had gone next door and after they had spoken with the medium.
Oh, which generally means that they're trying to open something in that area. Not that they're trying to open it, but the openness of the people that are visiting might help.
Yeah. Especially because things get attached. And if there already was actually a connection to the neighbor's house, I could see where that would make it even easier to come in.
Yeah.
So while Skyping a friend one evening, Kevin had stepped away from his computer for just a moment. And when he returned, his friend, who now refuses to enter the house ever, adamantly insisted that a little girl had stepped in front of the camera while he was out of the room. And that was despite the fact that Kevin was in the house alone that evening.
That's so cool.
It is. It actually kind of gives me goosebumps.
I got a little chillsies.
Another thing that happened was one day one of Kevin's neighbors came knocking on his door unexpectedly and told him that there was a little girl dangling her feet out of the third floor window, and they were very concerned that she was going to fall.
Oh, it's adorable.
It is. The neighbor was a little bit frantic as they were like, go save that little girl.
No, I would be in that same manner, like, hey, that kid shouldn't be out that window.
Right? So as the activity in the house became more frequent and intense, Kevin and visitors would start to hear voices in the house that would speak directly to them intelligently. Kevin also claims to have seen full-bodied apparitions of both Sadie and Sarah separately, looking completely different. He would regularly hear sounds of voices and two little girls crying in the third floor bedroom.
It's like
I get so upset.
I know. I don't like that at all. I hate that.
I hate that so much. It makes me so upset. One year on October 22nd, while he was living in the home, he claims to have heard what he believes is Sadie screaming frantically at the top of her lungs from the third floor bedroom. October 22nd is supposed to be the date of Sadie's death.
I don't like any of this. It's very upsetting.
It is very upsetting. I don't think that Kevin lives there anymore from the research that I did on the house. When I got super obsessed with it, I looked up the public records on it.
Yeah, I remember that you were like, someone bought it, but I don't think they live there, so...
The house, it appears to have changed hands several times, and it's hard to tell from the records, but it looks like somebody had purchased the house, had paid a pretty decent price for it, and they stayed there for 3 or 4 months, and then they stopped paying the mortgage and moved out. And then someone bought it again after that, and they lived there for about 6 months before they moved out of the house. And they paid even less money for it because the house had gone into foreclosure.
Right.
People aren't staying there. People are moving out of that house really quickly and to a point where they're just like, I'm not even going to pay the mortgage. I'm just going.
You can buy the house. I'll come live with you. And I love little kid ghosts. I think it's wonderful. I wasn't aware that there were little kid ones.
I knew that one of them was very young, but I didn't know that both of them were so young.
Yeah.
I had believed that Sadie was older than she actually was.
Because she was confused with the sex worker.
Yeah, so going back and reading that they were both two small children, it made the story a lot worse for me. I did not know a single thing about this house. I had no idea that it was haunted. I had never laid eyes on it before. As soon as I drove past this house, there was something about it. I loved it. I felt so drawn to it that I've even done projects for my photo classes for school where I've photographed this house.
Yeah.
And it got me to the point where I typed the address into Google one day to see if it was ever going to be up for sale. And the first thing that popped up when I put the address into Google was an article from the Patch about Frankfort's token haunted house.
Right.
And that was my story.
No, it was super interesting.
And we'll put the pictures that I took of the house up on Instagram. If you are not already following us on our social media accounts on Instagram, Shots in the Dark Podcast, please, if you have not already done so, leave us a nice rating and a review on iTunes and on Google Play.
You can find us on Snapchat. We're trying to be more...
of a presence.
Yeah, a presence on there if you want to send us things, or if you just want to watch the stories that I keep forgetting to post because I'm not great at taking photos or doing social media. We are Shots in the Dark P on that, and Twitter as well. We now have changed our Facebook over to Shots in the Dark Pod, so you can find us on there.
We love hearing back from people, so if you have a story that you want to tell us or you want us to talk about, or even if you have an interesting bit of information that we maybe didn't pick up on in one of our previous episodes, feel free to shoot us an email at shotsinthedarkpodcast@gmail.com. We should close this out with our cheers, right?
Yeah, I'm going to do our cheers tonight. I'm not as cool as Ty. I'm not a good poetry writer unless I feel really inclined to my person. But this one is specific to you. Here's to you who halves my sorrows and doubles my joys.
Oh, that's how I feel about you too. Cheers.
Cheers.
Love you.
I love you back.
With that being said, thanks for listening. And both of us here at Shots in the Dark Podcast hope that we've left you shaken.
Not stirred.
Bye.
Bye.